We are learning troubling new details of how the pandemic is affecting female workers, and this is serious. In September, 4 times more women than men left the workforce, according to the National Women's Law Center. And a new study by McKinsey Company and leanin.org warns that the crisis could erase all the gains that women have made in recent years in the workplace. The Women in the Workplace report says 1 in 4 women is considering leaving their job or downshifting their career because of the pandemic. We spoke with 3 women who recently left a job.
And I never thought I would have to leave my job.
I had a lot of anxiety.
I was not sleeping at night because I was so worried.
I was the general warehouse associate. When COVID first came out, we were not 6 feet apart. It was very unsafe. I have a 1-year-old. She has breathing issues. And I also have a 13-year-old. She has a rare type of cancer. And so I really had to leave my job because of them. My kids are way more important than this job.
I was working 2 jobs. One was doing medical and scientific communications. It was my dream job. And then the other was the freelance job. When I was working the 2 jobs, I started a COVID response project and was delivering food to frontline workers. It was all too much. I was going to bed at 3 or 4 a.m. I chose to let my main job go.
I was a 3rd grade teacher. I decided to quit my job because I didn't feel comfortable putting my 4.5-month-old in daycare with COVID.
Almost, bud. We're getting there.
It's just human nature as a mother to want to do what's best for your family. And if that means taking a step back to ensure safety, then I think that's a decision that many would make if it's possible.
Rachel Thomas is co-founder and CEO of leanin.org, and Lorena Lee is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at McKinsey and Company. They both helped write this report that we're talking about this morning. And Rachel, I want to go to you first. We just heard from a mother who left her job to spend time with her children, to be there for her children. That's actually really common. And so the question comes to mind, what do companies need to do to support these women? Also, what do spouses, partners need to do? What does society need to do?
Companies are taking steps to support women right now, but the problem is they're not doing enough to address the crux of the issue, which is burnout. Women cannot be expected to live up to business as usual expectations right now. Nobody can. So what does that look like? Companies need to start asking some tough questions. Were goals set before the pandemic? Are they attainable and realistic now? Should performance reviews look like they did before the pandemic? Probably not. And companies also need to set new norms for how they're working. So perhaps no emails after 8 p.m. at night. We know that women and all employees feel like they're on 24/7 right now, and companies need to address that head on.
Yeah. Lorena, I want to go to you because the pandemic coincided with this national conversation about racial justice. And I was interested in the report to learn that only 1 in 3 women of color say they heard from a manager about how they might be doing. Does that number surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me, quite frankly, because even before COVID, there were huge disparities for women of color. We know that women of color, and particularly Black women, had fewer opportunities, had fewer mentors and sponsors, and when they looked up at corporate America, they saw fewer people that looked like them and could be role models for them. And then what happened with COVID? We saw that Black women, for instance, saw 3 times more likely to face the death of a loved one and felt more uncomfortable sharing that. And we didn't see managers step up, just as you said.
Well, so I say I was surprised that it was only 1 out of 3 managers, but on the other hand, I'm also not surprised because I think, particularly if a manager is white, particularly if a manager is male, they may not be sure how to reach out. They may find it risky. They're not sure what language to use. So what advice do you have for how managers can make that call, have that conversation that they themselves may find a little difficult?
Oh, it's such a great question, and it's really important because if you step up to be an ally, it actually matters a lot. We know that Black women who had an ally over the course of the pandemic are 2.5 times more likely to see a fair workplace and to want to stay and feel encouraged and motivated. So being an ally, stepping up and speaking out, and asking the basic question of what is going on in your life and let me be there, let me understand, and let me make sure you still have opportunities in the workplace.
Yeah. Rachel, I want to jump back to you. One of the amazing things that's happening right now is that it's not just women who are in their first position that are leaving, but women in senior roles who are mid-career or even later, they're stepping back. And that's a loss because the kind of chain of success is broken. Those women are likely to be mentoring other women. How do you keep those women in those jobs? What do companies need to do to say, hey, stick around. I know it's hard now, but we need you?
Yeah, burnout is the crux of this for a lot of women. So what we know are senior leaders are facing a lot right now. They're running businesses that are sometimes failing, employees are struggling, and senior level women are facing the same stressors as senior level men, but then some. They feel like they need to work harder, they're more likely to be burned out, and they're more likely to think about leaving the workforce. And as you said, we cannot afford to lose senior level women. When there's more women in leadership, companies perform better, they have better cultures. And back to that mentorship and allyship that Lorena was just talking about, we know that senior level women are more likely to show up for women of color as allies, mentors, and sponsors. So we cannot afford to lose senior level women. Organizations need to be doubling down to make sure they feel supported. Yeah. If leaders don't feel supported, it's hard for them to bring their best selves and the empathy they need to make sure other employees are getting the support they need right now.
Lorena, we're running out of time, but there's an important question I want to get to you in particular. California passed a law recently requiring boards to have at least one woman, and now even more recently, the governor of California signed a law requiring those boards to have a person of color. I think it was an executive director position. Do you think quotas like that, which don't make it just a duty but a legal responsibility, are a good idea, a good way to reach these goals?
Well, we've had quotas in Europe before, and I think it's not so much the issue of a quota per se, but do companies have clear targets and goals? Are you actually being specific about what success looks like? It's not just more women, how many women, and at what time period. And if you're not clear on your goal, how do you expect the rest of the organization to follow suit? We know what gets measured gets watched, and what gets measured gets done. And as Rachel said, we also know that diversity at the top level of a management team and a board creates better business performance. So why would you say no to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Companies set goals for everything else. They put numbers on it, so why not put a number on this? Rachel Thomas and Lorena Yee, thank you very much for being here, guys. Very important report.